Washington kept amazing me. I was thrown out of a restaurant. My girlfriend and I from Philadelphia were thrown out of a restaurant in Alexandria. Yeah, it's not there now. It was a coffee shop with a chess set in the window, which I had worked in Philadelphia in a coffee shop, and the chess set meant it was an intellectual sort of thing. And it was across from City Hall, literally across from City Hall. And we were so stupid, and it had black waitresses. Now, if you think that if you see black people working there, that the blacks could come. Mm-hmm. And so we walked in, we sat down, and a woman came over and said, "We don't serve something." And so we were so stupid. I just said, "What did you say?" And she said, "We don't serve so-and-so." So I said, "Gosh, what?" Look at the menu. I said, "Well, tell us what you have. You don't. If you're missing something on the menu, just tell, because we're so starved. We'll eat that." And then she finally said, she was embarrassed. She finally said it very clear and loud. It was a white manager in the back, and she said it very clear. "We do not serve colored." And it was like, I wasn't joking, but it was like, I don't want to eat colored food. But we jumped up. We were starving, but my adrenaline kicked in. I just jumped up, and we stupidly ran to the police station, and CORE was picketing the police station. And they said if we would picket with them, they would come back and sit in with us at the restaurant. And they did that. And the women, they actually added $1. Things were very inexpensive. They added $1 to, it was a 75-cent sandwich. They made it $1.75. And so that means we're not going to buy it. Well, my menu, they didn't get to mine fast enough. And mine was just a regular menu. But I felt really sad. So I went in the next day, I called the Washington Post, I called the Star. And nobody used, they called the manager the next day, and she said it was a mistake. Just a white woman and 2 black waitresses. And I'm so stupid. I mean, I went in the next day, and I said, I was the one you didn't serve, and this and that and whatever. And I'm thinking she's going to say, it was a mistake, we're embarrassed, we have a free meal. I don't know where I got my head from, but she didn't offer a free meal, so I walked out. Going to a hospital center, there was a staff person. I had mixed staff, which was very different in those days. I had a white girl working with me. She was pregnant, and she went into Washington Hospital Center. And they said, did she mind having a colored roommate? And so she came back with that. We had a big fuss on that. Called city council. All kinds of stuff. I mean, it was a fertile area for fussing in the 60s. And it's certainly it's better now, but it was amazing. Not that Philadelphia was perfect, and also but it's good that I didn't know how bad Philadelphia was and this and that, whatever, because when you're younger, your parents protect you. So I'm from Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia. I went to Temple University and came down and worked in Jamaica, West Indies after I graduated, and then came here to Washington. I used to write for the Washington Post and the Star, in terms of mainly women's articles and stuff. My mother taught art, so in my house, this is a picture of my mother. And she went to University of Pennsylvania, and she taught art in the system. So in my house, we were doing something in art, making things. It was just a normal part of life. You didn't even realize that maybe most of the world didn't do that. But either we were painting or this or that. So I did craft things when I was a child. I did earrings and all kinds of stuff like that. So when I went down to Jamaica, that was just a normal kind of thing. I had relatives in Jamaica, so that's why I went to Jamaica. Wanted to go to France and ended up with no budget and ended up with Jamaica. I wanted to work abroad, get out of the United States. This is in the 60s, and I thought life was really tough here. I felt the racism was very hard, and I wanted to write for newspapers. I wanted to just do various things that weren't fitting easily for blacks here in the States and also for women. And I did not get, and France is where we all had heard of as being open to blacks in terms of talent. And I didn't get there. And so I had relatives in Jamaica and came there. And Jamaica was developed enough. They had manufacturing. I used to write for Women's Wear Daily. And they had shoe manufacturing, jewelry, but I covered anything I could think of for down there, and also human relations stories. And I worked there 3 years. And Toast&Strawberries came out from Jamaica. In Jamaica, I was I had things made up for myself. Bracelets, wood bracelets, necklaces out of beads and whatever. They had beads, but that I had them changed around and made them more, I say for me, but also would have been for a market in North America. So I was doing that and people noticed it and said, well, why don't you sell it to department stores or sell it to stores? And I said, oh, gee, I hadn't thought of that. And then I was headed back and forth. And so I was always working outside of the market. I would get a job in Jamaica and they could not get permission for me to work. And so I ended up, I said, I give up. And I came back. I had friends in Washington. I stopped off here. I thought life was really tough here. But anyway, I went to New York. I sold to Saks Fifth Avenue, Gordon Taylor. Trying to think what else, but other small stores like that. And you had to sell to some place that was, would be, the items would be different or would fit in with their look of different. And I did bracelets. I have some shares I'll show you. I was very pleased because the buyer told me in Saks. She said, did you see your bracelets in the window? And I said, no. But I immediately ran around to see them. And I didn't have a camera. I would have loved to have had that. I was very proud of that. And so I was based in Washington, and then and I sold to Philadelphia, New York. So it would be Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, and Washington. And it seemed like an interesting city. I had friends here, and part of that meant that I actually met my girlfriend. 2 girlfriends were going to introduce me to the same guy, and I met him and enjoyed him, and we got married. His name was Paul Miller. He was a lawyer, and he later became dean of Howard's Law School. But I worked in Washington, and I did my writing, did the things that I wanted to do. It was a kind of a exciting time in terms of blacks. In Jamaica, I used to do craft design, and I sold bracelets and things like that to department stores, Saks, Lord & Taylor, whatever. And then I continued that down here in Washington. And I wanted to open I used to do trade shows. And I had so many items I was showing. I actually ended up showing 4 other people and whatever, that I decided that it would be good to have a showroom shop. And we we did that at Connecticut and in DuPont Circle. DuPont Circle is an interesting area here in Washington. It was an interesting area years ago, and it is now still. Lots of people from around the world, and almost every embassy from around the world is there. And the showroom shop ended up to be retail. I didn't realize how unusual it was to have a small store, black-owned small store here in Washington. People were just like out of their minds. They were so unusual. And it flipped over to retail. And so it continued from there. And we moved from Connecticut and R to Connecticut and Q right next to the subway. And we did 37 years. We closed in 2004. It was, my items that I was selling were international. I had things that I had made in Jamaica. I had flowers out of Mexico, fake flowers and whatever. Almost everything was from somewhere else. And so I wanted to find a place, an area that people were aware of and might appreciate things that were from around the world. We were at the corner of Connecticut and R. They told me, I don't know why they said they turned me down, I can't remember what. But then we went to the Human Relations Commission here, and they told them that I was too young. I was in my mid-20s. And then they rented to us. And people in Washington were like totally, so much stuff to tell you. But Connecticut Avenue was the dividing line in this city. On this side of Connecticut, it's mixed and mainly black. Literally, middle of the street, on the side, it's white. And we were on that side. And so therefore, people in Washington were like saying, oh my God. And I think you have to be an out-of-towner sometimes to do stuff like that. Whatever I'm telling you. Jobs, because other people just give up and go around the corner, And so black people were black and white people were very amazed that we were in the location we were at. And it was very, very novel, yes. And so people had to come in they would come in almost just look in the door. It was sort of funny. They were hiring blacks, and blacks were getting like the first kinds of jobs, the first this, first that. And I also applied for like some on-air stuff and didn't get that. But it was exciting. The newspapers were hiring blacks. It was a good time. And my book was it was inspired because a woman asked me to do a Black History program. We did a lot of fashion shows at Toast&Strawberries. I used to model, and then I did commentary and all this. So as soon as we opened, people asked us. It was such a dearth in the Black community. Well, later a woman asked me to do a history fashion show, a Black history fashion show, and talk about Black designers from the past. We would show our clothes, of course, but when I tell people about designers in the past, and I said, sure. And I was amazed. I absolutely did not know of any other designers before the 50s. I mean, I knew of this, that, and whatever, but nobody earlier. And again, my mother taught art, and I really thought I knew something, and I found I knew nothing. So I had to go. I went over to Howard University Spingarn Library, and the librarians there were very helpful, and it gave me like 5 or 6 different designers that they dug up. And I told, because it was the 1800s, remember I said that. And that started me on, and I did that in my fashion show. I did bios on the people. I later became pregnant, and I have 2 children, and we sold a baby back carrier, a thing called the Snuggly. You could go front or back. And in those days, there wasn't, only people who did mountain climbing had metal things. And they were the ones who had focused on how to bring the babies. And so ours was a soft thing and people used it, just a regular thing. And we sold it all over the world. And we were written up in Swedish papers, and the Washington Post did a nice half-page article, and we got almost anybody who was of interest in Washington who had sort of like whatever, had to have this baby back carrier, because it was like, all the baby contact and all that sort of stuff. And for us, it was just amazing. I enjoyed that variety of people. It was just really amazing. That would be so hard. It was, we were open 7 days a week. Now, I was not there every day. I was there usually not Sunday. And I tried to take off later in the middle of the week. It's just, and dealing with people. I wasn't that good with dealing with people. I think until you do get in retail, you tend to, if someone says, do you like it? Or I like this song, you say yes, no. Well, you in retail, you try to soften and say, well, maybe if we did this and that. And we actually did touch people. We actually did a hands-on kind of thing. And we dressed them. And some people like that. Most people liked, they told me they thought that, it was a different experience. But also you have a different way of talking when you're in retail, is that you're promoting, you're selling, sort of thing. And so that's hard. It's really hard. I don't think I had any idea how hard retail was. I enjoyed fashion. I told you we always did designs. I just thought it was natural I made up, clothes. I thought that was natural, and I thought I could do it for somebody else, and it wouldn't be that hard or something. But people have all these little things that they want, and it is difficult if somebody is enjoying something on them that is just doesn't seem to be a good idea. And you try to, how do you explain that? Something is too tight to this. How do you get them out of that? Whatever. I found that very difficult. And but I certainly enjoyed. Remember that I also enjoy people and enjoy this and that. But when I ran into things like that, that was very difficult for me. That's interesting. I think that I would do a sum total that since I'm a talker, I really enjoyed the people. And we got a whole range of people from Washington. Just amazing variety. Excuse me.
Pardon me?
What did your mother say about the store at Toast and Strawberries at Cleo?
She said it was great. She said that this young woman came here from Philadelphia, and she didn't know that she wasn't supposed to have a store west of Connecticut Avenue, and how it always happens. We people who were born here let these people come in and take over. She would be a nice lady for you. And then she said, but I think she's married. And that was like 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. I met her 20 years ago.
I'm sorry, my husband died.
When that store opened, it was the biggest deal. Everybody was going there and talking about it. And the first time I saw it was 20 years ago.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's my mother.
Yeah.
My mother was into fashion and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
and whatever was new, she was into. And Toast and Strawberries was really something new because black people knew better than to
You
try
were.
to have a store west side of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And we had things that we made up a lot of our own designs, or almost all of our designs, and it wasn't fantastically different. I can show you pictures later, but there things are a little bit different, and so therefore, and I didn't want to have any commercial items. I wanted to have we work with small designers, so it was different on that level, but. I didn't know all of this. I didn't know that people thought it was that unusual. You know how if you're the person, you don't think of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought it was a store when we opened. I thought people were coming because they liked the idea. I actually, when it was a former hat shop, and it had a little entranceway, and then it had 2 rooms on either side. And I put stones in this when you come in. And I wanted people to know that they were in a different environment. The stones would hopefully tell you they were doing something different. And so we did that.